All right, my intention is to dispel some myths around steelhead fishing and drift fishing in general. I'm going to say something a lot of people aren't going to like. It's not hard. Steelhead fishing in general is not hard. What makes it harder than other types of fish is that they tend to be found in really crappy weather. That's it. Now, that said, fix that a little bit. That said, I'm going to cover some basic drift fishing methods to get rid of the mystique a little bit surrounding this whole endeavor. This is two swivels linked together. That line you see is the leader line. You don't need to go super long. This is maybe 3 feet. And this is just a little spinner, free sliding with a bead on it, egg loop, and a size 2 octopus style hook. It's that simple. Right? It is that simple. And yes, I know. You can drift pretty much anything, from soft beads to hard beads to worms, cheaters, corkies, even flies. Those are just flies tied to a leader that you would normally just drift, right? Also very effective, you don't mind my saying. Slinkers tend to be really good in very boulder type area. Yes, I know. Okay. I'll play with you. I just got done. Hey, stop it. Okay, anyway, back to business. Yarn isn't really good for anything but 2 things. Bro, stop it. I will put you in the kennel. Okay, we get the message there. So yarn is meant for 2 things. One, it holds scent very well. The other is that it gets tangled on their teeth a little bit, giving you just a little bit more time to set that hook, because as you're drifting through an area, typically with a corky especially, or a piece of egg, a little clump of eggs, cheaters, even the flies, the hit is going to feel like a tiny tap tap. That's it. That's all you're going to feel. And that's on a stronger hit. A little rainbow trout will hit you the same oftentimes as a 20-pound steelhead. It's very gentle, with the exception of things like spinners or oftentimes worms, because they have action to it. They'll attack it more aggressively, that is. Now, that said, as far as line weights, there are occasions, they are rare, there are occasions where I've gone as low as 4-pound fluorocarbon, and that was because it was a high pressure situation. It was very tough to get a bite, and it was super clear water. It was a nightmare. So you had the choice of, okay, do I go that light and risk losing a lot of fish, or do I just not get bites? That's the choice. Now, this is only one method, but it is the most consistent method, in my opinion, of all the methods. Meaning, it's not always going to get the fish, it's not always the right choice, but it's at least more common than any of the other options I normally pursue. Gel sand shrimp, I would highly recommend using that. The gels seem to do a lot better and they cling to it a lot more. This is a 20-shot slinker. Usually I use these for deeper, faster water, where generally you find the bigger fish anyway. Bigger fish of the area, that is. Now, on to getting a feel for your drift. When you fish in an area, yes, I know. When you fish in an area, generally every drift is going to be a little bit different. And the idea, the best way to feel these strikes, no matter how small they are, is to get a really good feel for the body of water that you are on. If you're just slamming the bottom with a heavy weight, you can wriggle a shot out of this, or use pencil lead and just clip a little bit of lead off of it. Little by little, every cast you're getting a feel. If you're just dragging the bottom, clip off a little bit of pencil lead, make it lighter. To a degree where when you cast up to your 2 o'clock-ish, where you start your drift, and then as it gets in front of you, you reel in a little bit, the extra slack line. From there on, you want to be just barely gliding over the bottom. Okay, this weight, you don't want it hitting the bottom so much. If you can achieve that, where it's just barely gliding, almost anything you're going to feel is going to be some kind of fish, whether it's a little white fish or a big fat one, right? That's the key. It's not really bouncing the bottom, it's gliding it. If you can do that in just about any area, you can zero in on what a strike is, okay? Because it can be tough. Dolce, stay out of there. Stay out of the kitchen. So, this dog, go. So, what I'm trying to say is that first cast fish pretty much don't happen. But if you're willing to spend the time and pound the water and dissect that drift little by little to where you are gliding just barely over the bottom, you will increase your chances of being able to detect a strike like tenfold. That's the key. Perseverance and step-by-step process of elimination of what is going to work. Now, if you achieve that glide and you're not getting any hits and you know fish are in the area, change something. You could change the color of what you've got. You could switch to a plastic worm. You could switch to a bead. You could do a lot of things. A spinner is really good when it's unpressured water because they tend to hit that a lot more in unpressured situations. And you can apply pretty much whatever scent you want. I know the regulations in the Northwest this year are a little messed up, but ideally, normally, you'll use scent or bait or a little bit of everything, okay? Now, line weights. This is 12-pound trilene. It's a really good go-to. It's what I normally use, right, as far as drift gear setup goes. But like I said, sometimes those conditions, they require real stealth. And on that basis, always make your leaders before you go to the water. Like, I'm just starting out today, but always make them, right? If you don't make leaders before you go to the water, you didn't go to the water to fish. You went to the water to make leaders because you're going to lose a lot of gear. Just accept it. You're going to lose gear. And as far as a mainline goes, traditionally speaking, you want to use a high visibility mainline. Guys, quiet down. Quiet down. So, high visibility mainline all the way tends to spook fish in a lot of situations, clear water situations. But what you can do is use a blood knot and tie, say, 10 or 20 feet of regular mono or fluorocarbon onto your main line, so that way it pressures the fish a lot less. It's extra steps, but there's tutorials for a blood knot, how to splice two lines together. I highly recommend looking it up. I use blood knots pretty much exclusively, and it's done me very, very well. Then you can have the best of both worlds. High visibility line to see where your line is and what it's doing, and not pressure the fish too much. Now, as far as the varieties of strikes come, they are actually a little bit more varied than people will say. A lot of people will argue with me on this. That's fine. I don't really care. I base what I say on the evidence of what I've done and what I've seen. Now, sometimes when you're drifting through whatever you're drifting, your line will just barely hesitate. It'll just stop for a fraction of a second. Now, this is why it's important to get to know that drift, because if you know there's nothing there that should be stopping your drift, set that hook. Just a nice firm set. And maybe there's nothing there. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe you went too deep, too low, whatever it is. That's one type of strike. Another one is when they get just a little bit heavier because maybe they're just holding on to it and the weight of the line picks up from the belly of the line that's created. That can also be a strike for, especially with bait. If you use bait, that's oftentimes how I get strikes. It just gets a little heavier. And then the one that I find most